alert to start.
This meeting is being recorded.
The spoiler alert is that in terms of abortion rights, we basically don't have any, okay? And our options are pretty limited. And in fact, what's really sort of appalling when you think about it is that the status in terms of abortion rights is worse now than it was in 1857, okay, when they passed the first criminal code prohibiting abortion, because that one made the penalty for abortion, performing an abortion, I think it was 2 to 5 years in prison was the penalty range. The current penalty range under the Texas trigger law is up to life imprisonment, okay, as well as you can have civil penalties up to $100,000. So we've definitely gone backward, not forward. But right now, you know, the eyes of the whole United States, really, that's interested in abortion rights, oddly enough, is focused. It's focused in Amarillo, of all places. There's a federal district court located in Amarillo. It's the only one, the only federal court there. And recently, it got in the news because they eliminated the access of minors to get contraceptives for under Title 10. The family planning part of Title 10 without the consent of their parents. That particular judge that's located out there, he's in a single district, okay? He's the only judge. So you get, you know, if you file there, you know who you're going to get. And he's an extreme right winger appointed by Trump. And he issued a nationwide injunction on these Title 10 funds. So all over the country, minors that used to be able to access birth control without having parental consent now cannot do that. So what's come up now, and what has everybody very concerned, is that having this ideal jurist from the right-wing point of view available, there's been a filing out there to ban the abortion pill statewide, not statewide, all over the country. They're asking for an injunctive relief that's nationwide. And this particular jurist is so extreme that even though most legal scholars say that the lawsuit is just preposterous, there's big concern that he may grant this nationwide injunction, which would effectively prevent women all over the United States from being able to access safe and legal abortion. And the reason is that right now, the abortion clinics that exist out of state is they're so overburdened by what's happened in the states that have banned abortion, with all the people coming in, that if they lose the ability to do medication abortion, then that's going to just increase the burden tremendously. You know, the process for doing a medication abortion is very quick and simple, relatively speaking. I mean, you go in, you have a visit, you get the pills, etc., versus having the medical procedure, which is it's not a huge, lengthy kind of thing, but it's still much more burdensome than doing the pill procedure. So there's big concern all across the country about what this judge is going to do in Amarillo, of all places. And not a lot of hope that if he grants this thing, that we will get any kind of quick relief, because the Fifth Circuit is where it would go next. And the Fifth Circuit is the most right-wing conservative circuit in the United States. And of course, then, I mean, we've got a Supreme Court, and you know what that's like too. So Texas again has managed to live up to its new motto of what happens in Texas doesn't stay in Texas when it comes to abortion rights and reproductive rights. So that's very, very alarming, I think. On a bright note, although I'm skeptical, I will give you two pieces of somewhat good news. One is that a court in Washington State just awarded close to $1 million in damages to Planned Parenthood against an anti-abortion group that was picketing and being very disruptive to the delivery of services in Washington State. I don't really expect that any of that will truly end up at Planned Parenthood. I think that judgment will probably be reversed, but it was happy news to have it. The other is a piece of good news that's up recently is that a judge in DC thinks that the 13th Amendment might provide abortion rights, and has asked some lawyers in a case there to brief the issue. She says that the Dobbs decision by the United States Supreme Court only addressed the 14th Amendment, that none of the parties addressed the 13th Amendment, and that there is some legal opinions that indicate that they think that the involuntary servitude prohibition of the 13th Amendment could be applicable. I think it's an interesting theory. I don't think that Gorsuch and Alito and Thomas and Amy Barrett and the usual suspects, I don't think they will buy that for a moment, but it's an interesting idea. Maybe by the time something got up to the Supreme Court, the makeup would be different and they might find that to be so. Anyway, turning to our situation in Texas, we have basically 3 prohibitions in effect after the Dobbs decision, taking away the constitutional right to abortion. We have this 1857 law that was banning. It was still on the books. It had never been repealed after Roe v. Wade was decided. So that's sitting there as a prohibition. We have a SB 8, which was passed a couple of years ago, the last legislative session, which is considered the bounty provision. It's still in effect. It's a prohibition at 6 weeks. Anything after 6 weeks, with rare exception, is subject to that civil enforcement mechanism of SB 8. And then we also have the trigger law, which was passed, I think, I can't remember now. It's been on the books for a while, but it was a law that goes into effect if and when the United States Supreme Court overruled Roe v. Wade. And that's the one that provides up to a life sentence for performing an abortion, and has a civil penalty attached to it of $100,000. So that's why basically you don't have abortion providers in Texas. The state of the law is very confusing. Some people have been threatened basically by some legislators saying, there've been some employers who have indicated that they're willing to cover the medical costs and the transportation costs for women to travel, their employees to travel outside the state to get a lawful abortion. And they've received letters from a group of Texas legislators saying that they consider that illegal and violative of our statutes and sort of threatening criminal prosecution for them. So employers and providers and people that provide information are all very nervous about, what are we going to do in terms of giving any assistance to employees or other people regarding abortion services. The National Abortion NARAL, National Abortion Rights Action League, is still operating, and they will provide referral services, provide some assistance if you're trying to travel out of state. The National Network of Abortion Funds also is a resource if you're trying to do that. I think Lilith Fund is still funding, although everybody is very antsy, okay, because nobody knows whether or not you can be sued or not. What you have to understand about this SB 8 in particular, that in reality is the most invidious of the lot, because it allows anybody to sue almost anybody. They don't have to be in any sense related to who it is that they're claiming had the abortion. It can just be anybody. They can sue supposedly anyone who aids or abets or assists, as well as performs an abortion that's prohibited under that statute. And what's unknown is, does that include if you gave money to an abortion fund, for example? Can you be sued? And if you're sued, you have to understand that the way that statute is written, it totally turns over the concept of our courts as a level playing field for litigants. Everything on that playing field is tilted to the plaintiff that's suing. They get to pick where they file the suit and totally control that, okay? The suit cannot be moved, no matter how inconvenient it may be to whoever is being sued, unless all of the plaintiffs agree. So, all they have to do is find anybody, say they wanted to accuse you of aiding an abortion. All they have to do is find somebody in a county where they know the judge will be favorable to them. Just find anybody there who'll sign on to the suit. They can file it there and they can control it totally, even though everyone else in the litigation is from whole different part of the state. That's very onerous and very unlike any other kind of litigation where, the stuff, it can be moved for the convenience of the parties. I mean, it would be just outrageous that, everyone who's involved is on one side of the state, and yet the suit is going on at the other end of the state. The other way in which it's very unfair is that even if the suit is found frivolous, and the plaintiffs lose, they cannot be charged attorney's fees or cost. Okay, so it's like heads you win, tails you lose. No matter how it comes out, the defendants end up out of money. And if the finding is against them, what the press usually says is it's a $10,000 bounty. That is not correct. It's a minimum 10,000. There is no upper limit stated, and there's no rules on how is this number to be calculated. So you could end up in Tyler, Texas, for example, which has a very right-wing judge, district in a district court out there. And, you know, he could assess $1 million if he wanted to. So that's why all of the providers and everybody is very antsy about this. I mean, you just don't know what kind of liability you've got. I mean, can you be sued if you tell somebody how to reach an abortion fund? Can you be sued if you drive them across state? Can you be, nobody knows, okay? There's been a lawsuit that's been filed by some of the abortion funds trying to nail this down to get an idea about what kind of liability people have. But that has not been decided, and that's going to be a long road. So it's a very, very difficult thing. Right now in the Texas Ledge, we don't know what they're going to do, except I know that whatever they do is going to be not good. I always say that, no woman's life, liberty, or private parts are safe when the Texas legislature is in session. And already they have, they're showing that's true. There's about, 40 bills that have been filed that have the subject matter of abortion in them. A friend of mine who's a lobbyist in Austin tells me that, the abortion bill that's top of mind right now that they're talking about is, let me find the number here, SB 378, okay? And what that bill is designed to do is to penalize county district attorneys and threaten them, really, unless they will prosecute these anti-abortion statutes, okay? They want to make, your metro prosecutors, they're saying, first of all, that, if somebody else can come in and prosecute, they'll take away jurisdiction and somebody else can come in and prosecute if that local area will not prosecute those offenses, and also fine and even have a threat of being able to remove the district attorney from office. And that's the one that, as I said, my friend who's a lobbyist says is the one that's top of mind right now in the legislature. Fortunately, Kim did not come out and make some statement saying, I'm not going to prosecute these cases. I had friends that were saying, oh, we should do this. We should get our local, to say they're not going to investigate these. They're not going to file them. And I said at the time, Kim needs to keep her mouth shut, because all that's doing is inviting Kim Paxton and that pack of people to come in and do something. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, we had like 5 district attorneys who were foolish enough to run out and make statements when they should have kept their mouths shut. How would they know? Okay, what they've done by going out and making statements like that is they've provided prima facie proof. If this law passes, and there's some allegation that's not being enforced, those people have provided prima facie proof. It's even in the statute that they're guilty. Okay, and that's where people on our side of the block need to be a little smarter and keep in mind who we're dealing with. And sometimes it's better to keep your mouth shut instead of, enabling these people to do the kind of things that they're wont to do. We have Kim Paxton as our Attorney General, okay? And you need to keep that in mind. He's not going to be reasonable. He's the one who immediately wanted this kind of statute, and sure enough, they're delivering it. And it looks like it, from the information I have, it's quite likely to pass. As I said, fortunately, Kim was not jumping out there to open her mouth, and I think that was prudent of her. I'm sure people probably criticized her for not doing that, but in the long run, that was a smart thing to do. It, there's a bunch of other statutes. I mean, they're trying to, they want to penalize any kind of governmental unit that does anything that would help provide information for someone to travel out of state. There's laws about that. There's rumors that there will be laws trying to penalize, prohibit interstate travel for this purpose. Some people say, oh, but that's against the Constitution. Well, you got to remember who is sitting in the United States Supreme Court. I was reminded, listening to all of that, right now what we have, it's almost like the war between the states, and that's what I've been thinking about as I keep reading these things about New York, for example, has passed a shield law, okay, to protect their people from responding to subpoenas that are trying to be punitive from the anti-states, okay, reaching in, they're trying to shield their folks from prosecution from states like our state, okay, that want to prohibit people from coming out of state. And California is doing some things to try to make access legal. And my understanding is I saw the new AG on TV from Massachusetts, and she's talking about things that they're trying to do. And at the same time, we have these other states, okay, like Texas, like Kansas, these other states that are trying to reach in and punish, okay? Mm-hmm. So we have sort of the shield states and we have the punish states. And I kept thinking, what is it this reminds me of? And then it finally occurred to me. The old Fugitive Slave Act, going back to 1793. Okay? Way back, you probably were, we actually probably had history. They weren't banning it then like they are in Florida for those of us who are here. But somewhere back in if you're thinking back, there was a time whenever you had the free states and the slave states, and the slave states wanted the free states to send the slaves back that had escaped. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like the same thing, really. Okay, we have this group that's trying to pass all these shield laws, and then we have this other group of states that's trying to intervene, and we're rapidly devolving into the free versus the unfree states in terms of access to abortion rights. And the other one did not, it ended in justice eventually, but it did not end well in the sense that a lot of people died, and it was, it was a big mess to go through a civil war. But we're sort of doing that with regard to abortion rights. And they're also beginning to do the similar kind of thing with regard to the travel between states for trans kids, okay, for treatment of trans kids. You're seeing the same kind of thing happening with places like New York and California, the more progressive states passing, these sort of shield things, trying to help the escapees, and then states like Texas trying to figure out ways to prohibit, penalize, etc., people that engage in interstate travel, penalize, companies that assist in doing that, prohibit. I saw one of these statutes that's proposed wants to penalize any kind of state government, state or local government that provides any funding for an organization that might provide information for these kinds of things. So this is really ginning up, not just in Texas, but it's ginning up in other parts of the country as well, doing this. The other thing to watch, if you're watching what they're doing with their money, is that these they call them crisis pregnancy centers, or what is the other name for them? Pregnancy help centers. These are unlicensed, I call them anti-abortion propaganda centers, is what they really are. But they get state funds, and what's happening in the anti-states is that they're upping the money to these places. In Texas, we have a history that every legislative session for the last, I don't know, 10 years or so, has doubled the amount of money that those places have gotten from state funds. So right now, it's up out of the last legislative session, those anti-abortion propaganda centers in Texas are getting $50 million a year of your state tax dollars. And Abbott has promised to increase that. So at the rate they've been going in the past, I'm now expecting they're going to be getting over $100 million a year for these anti-abortion propaganda centers that are located all across the state. And that's another big area, because those places just they don't provide health care. They're not licensed medical facilities. They basically lie to people to keep them from getting an abortion. And they engage in religious indoctrination, basically, as a condition, really, for getting their services. You can go to them. They provide something called baby bucks for women that go there. And you have to earn your baby bucks, and then you can exchange them for things like maybe baby care, diapers, or, baby carriers, or some such things. And the way the baby bucks are set up is you get, say, a baby buck for finishing high school. Okay. You also get a baby buck for bringing the program from your Sunday church service. That's the kind of equivalence that they have. So, you get a baby buck for memorizing a Bible verse. Okay. But, you have to complete a semester of college to get a baby buck. So you can, they would say that, oh no, you don't have to be religious, but really, okay, I mean, memorizing one Bible verse is certainly a whole lot easier than completing a whole semester of college, right? And this is the place where they're going to send the money to help all of the women that are being hurt by abortion. That's what the plans are from Abbott and Dan Patrick. So I wish I could say that we had rights. We don't. I wish I could say we had great options. We don't. My prescription for the future is to keep registering voters and get them to go out and vote. We've got to get these young people registered, okay? We have gerrymandering really bad. And, we can't, we don't have the ability, we don't have a voter, what are they called, where you can, the voters can petition and get a proposition on the ballot. We don't have that in Texas. They do in other states. So it's not like we can petition and get abortion rights through petition. We're going to have to actually change the makeup of our elected officials. Anyway, I wish I could tell you that we had great options. I can't, and my time's up.
All right, Bobby, this is wow, this is a lot of information, boy. Yeah, you're like a walking encyclopedia on this subject.
Well, I've been doing this, for 50 years. Okay, I've been working on abortion rights for 50 years. You do learn a little over 50 years.
Yeah.
And I was the first person that handled, certainly the first person that had one of these judicial bypass cases representing pregnant teenage girls in Harris County because it was filed. I was called by the judge on the first day the law went into effect, and that was in the late 90s. And that might very well be, it probably was the very first one that was filed in Texas. Okay. So I've been, I represented hundreds of teenage girls over that period, and I probably handled the last one that was filed in Texas. Yeah, so the teenage girls, I hate it. I hate to think about what's happening to them. Women, even poor women, can get financial assistance and get out of state. They have to know what to do, but they can do it. Okay. I mean, the money can be found, okay, to help them. But with the teenage girls, if you're a teenage girl, you can't just get on a plane and fly across and disappear for 2 or 3 days and fly across the country. So, we have teenage girls that are the girls that are like the ones I represented that are in just really terrible situations. Because many of the girls I represented were in abusive situations. They would be beaten or kicked out of their home, or beaten and kicked out of their home if they came back pregnant. So it's a heartbreaking and very real thing for me personally.
It
Does
seems
anybody
like we
have
don't
any-
get a lot of this. We don't get a lot of this detail that you've been talking about in our news, or maybe I'm not reading the right news or listening.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's there. I mean, and the social media feeds you what you've shown you're interested in. Okay. It is self-perpetuating. I mean, those algorithms are. So a lot of it comes up for me.
Does anybody else have any questions? Just raise your hand and unmute yourself and ask. Hey, Susie, do you have any questions?
Yeah, let me get my video on.
Okay.
I wanted to watch Poppy, not me. So, Poppy, I don't know how practical it would be, but I do think that it might be helpful at some time before the next registration deadline, before the Democratic primaries in 24, to have a bunch of petitions going around among people of the appropriate age, teenagers and early 20s, to establish initiative and referendum in Texas, which, as you pointed out, it doesn't have, and then hand out those little strips of paper to every voter registrar we've got and have them run those people down and register them and turn them out.
Well, and that, I'm open and hope, I want all the ideas I can get. What I focused on during the last election, and now what we focused on was we sent postcards, thousands of postcards out to newly registered 18 and 19-year-old kids, just trying to remind them to get out to vote. And I'm hoping we're going to start up again and try to continue that, even, just when they register, just sending them a card saying, thank you for registering, the next election is, okay? Just getting to them as fast as we can, giving them positive reinforcement for registering and reminding them there's an election coming up, because there's always an election coming up.
Well, you're saying who's funding this?
Well, I mean, the Texas Now Education Fund has some grant money. It's not a lot, okay? But we'll try to raise more and find some more. But we've just got to reach young people and let them know what's happening.
Well, they're the ones who are going to suffer the most. They are the
Absolutely.
ones who are going to have the fewest options. they are the ones whose lives are most impacted. I'm not saying that other people don't have problems, but this population is deeply affected and is not voting in the numbers they could.
Right. Right. No, they're very deeply affected. I mean, let me give you an example of a girl I represented. Okay. I represented this girl. She was a young Black girl, 17 years old, a student. Okay. She had a full ride scholarship to Huntsville, which she would not have been able to take advantage of if she carried a pregnancy to term. She had no functioning parents. I don't remember. I think one of them was dead and the other was in TDC, in jail or something like that, but no functioning parental units, and had not had a functioning parental unit for years. She was sort of treated like a sack of potatoes and passed around from relative to relative. Okay. I mean, she would live at Auntie so-and-so's house for a while, and then she'd be moved to so. When I met her, she was sleeping on the floor at an uncle's apartment. It was a 1-bedroom apartment. She slept on the floor. And, basically he did not, even sort of recognize she was there. She was a piece of furniture to him. Okay. School was her sanctuary. Okay. But if he had known that she was pregnant, she would have been kicked out because he was not going to help her and a baby. I mean, he wasn't really doing much to help her other than providing a floor to sleep on. She worked, she paid for her own food and everything like that. I hate to think how many girls are like that are out there. I mean, what kind of life would she have? I mean, the difference between being able to go to college and maybe escape poverty, maybe put a life together, versus being on the street. And there's thousands and thousands of girls like that out there that have no support whatsoever.
Hey, Robert, you have a question? Please unmute and ask.
Yes, Poppy, I heard that, forget which locality or which jurisdiction, but there was a lawsuit saying that these anti-abortion laws go against religious freedom because some religions have different ideas as to when life begins, and basically this is a religious edict coming down through civil
Which
law.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that a Jewish church has sued in Florida somewhere, and the Satanic Temple also has a lawsuit going. And I'm not sure where that is. It isn't in Texas. It's somewhere in the Midwest, I think. And I think that's creative and might have the best chance with the current Supreme Court, because they are, at least they maintain that they are into religious freedom. But, I have a feeling that they're a lot more into the religious freedom that represents their religious views than they are into religious freedom that represents other people's religious views. But I think it's novel litigation, and I'm happy to see it. I still think that really what we have to do, I mean, one avenue would be to gain control of the Texas Supreme Court. Okay. They're statewide. Okay. So, I mean, gerrymandering doesn't affect that. I mean, if you're talking about what realistically is possible under the situation we are, is we need to focus on these statewide electoral offices. I mean, if we were able to capture the governorship, the lieutenant governor, and the court, we could undo gerrymandering, which would unravel the whole problem. Okay. Because we can't lose sight of what is underneath all of this. I mean, we are where we are to a large extent because of gerrymandering. And that's, we just got gerrymandered again. And, so we've got 10 years of this, unless we can find a way to capture the courts, especially in Texas.
Yeah, another question real quick. I heard that basically abortion's really not their end game. Their end game is a religious state, a theocratic state, and this is just one way along the way towards that.
I agree. Okay. I think that, yeah, I mean, look at what they turn to immediately. Okay. They turn to another hot ticket, hot social issue, dealing with trans kids. Okay. They really, it's like they moved immediately to assaulting transgender rights, especially the children, care of children. And if you and book banning, okay, is going on as well. I mean, we're just seeing this confluence of things that really represent a theocratic state. Now, and some of them are pretty open about talking about that's what they want. I can't remember if it's, I think Boebert in the in Congress has been pretty explicit about, wanting a theocratic state.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, well, I have a comment. Poppy, you can sympathize with me. My daughter-in-law runs one of those centers, has been doing it for years through her church. I have to say that in the beginning, I tried to swallow all my resentment and anger and look at the good things they did, because they really were helping these girls.
Right.
Not right next to a high school, and they're giving them a place to stay. A lot of times they teach them how to be good parents. They are doing some good things, until she went down there and demanded that the state, stop all abortions. That's when I said, I'm done with you. You're still my daughter-in-law, but not talking to you much. I kind of have the feeling that what people are really after is to go back to slavery. And this is how they're getting they're going to get too many people to hold jobs. So those people will end up being basically slaves. And I think it won't be formally slave master, but that's, I think, what they want. I really do. I can't think of any other reason why you would overpopulate the world so much deliberately. So
well,
tell me how
not
I'm right.
unless, yeah, you want a colonized protectorate.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I sympathize with you, and I'm all for them, providing some assistance to people that are in need.
Mm.
And I think we need a lot of maternal assistance. I mean, we have an extremely high death rate among Black women in particular. We have one of the worst maternal mortality rates in the United States. It actually approaches the maternal mortality rates in third world countries. But part of that is because our state refused Medicaid funds, okay, that were available from the government. So there's lots of problems, and we also have all of these hospitals that are closed out in rural areas. It's a medical desert for people that live outside of the major cities. So, there's a lot that needs to be done in terms of healthcare. I do wish that these centers would be actual medical facilities, so they'd be giving actual medical advice.
Julie has a question on the chat. My audio is not working. Please ask what we can do.
Well, I mean, you can contribute to some of the funds. I mean, there's lots of funds. There's Lilith Fund. There's National Network of Abortion Funds. There's National Abortion Rights Action League. The NAF, National Abortion Federation, is a big provider of information and assistance all across the country. But, I do not think that is the answer. I think that is a Band-Aid, to be honest. And, we have to, you're just putting a Band-Aid on the injured body when you try to transport them to another state and help them that way. I mean, we've got to address the machine that's producing this problem. And that's just a much harder thing to do. I mean, we all know what it involves. It involves we've got to register voters, we've got to educate voters, we've got to turn them out. And
If I
you know,
could make
no
one-
quick fix. No quick fix.
If I could make one more comment, we've also got to stop pretending we can do it all in the urban areas and in the Rio Grande Valley. We need to get our butts out there in the rural counties where kids are suffering and get some work done instead of pretending we can just ignore the rural counties and the legislature will change. Guess
Right.
what, folks? It won't.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, we do have to, we have to get out there. We have to be all across the state. You know, and I've encouraged people to, you know, if you're registering voters, I mean, try to go at least to your suburban areas and register there as well. I mean, you know, register here and in Montgomery County. If you're in, you know, try
Galveston
to-
County, Brazoria County.
Galveston,
No.
Brazoria. I mean, you know, some of y'all I think are down in the Bay Area. Yeah, I mean, try to reach across into that area that is more difficult. See, I mean, you know, we all probably remember when Galveston County was, you know, a whole different place.
Yes,
Their courthouse was a whole different place than it is now, let me tell you. Yeah, I used to go to Galveston County and do judicial bypasses. There was one judge at that time, the judges could do what was called deem a case granted, a bypass case granted. If they didn't give them a hearing within 2 business days, then it was granted by operation of law. And there was one judge down there. This is in the Democratic days, and I would go by and see her. I'd file one of these and walk by, and she would say, "Poppy, do you want me to actually have a hearing on this, or would you rather me just put it in my bottom desk drawer?"
was that Susan?
No, it was not Susan. But you know, but anyway, I mean, that was a very different county at that time. And I always said, I enjoy seeing you, but I'd rather it be in your desk drawer. Thank you very much.
Does anybody else have any questions for Poppy?
Thank you, just
Bobby,
thank you.
Yeah.
And
Bobby, I have a quick question. Is an abortion pill an option for Texans?
Well, and that's what I'm saying is, I mean, first of all, right now, I mean, we're all watching Amarillo because, I mean, that crazy guy out there may essentially get an injunction against mifepristone being available in the whole United States.
Wow.
You know, one of the things that's bothering me about this, and Robert Sanchez and some others have expressed some of my thoughts, but if this is allowed to continue, I'm afraid that it's going to spread to a whole lot of other issues. We're going to see a group of people who are less than even second-class citizens. I fear for example, Muhammad, you know, being a Muslim. I really, these things I do think about, and I'm really concerned that this poison, if it's not checked really soon, we're in a deep a bottomless pit here.
Yeah, I'm very concerned as well. I mean, just think about it. I mean, there are people who are actually wanting to interfere with your ability, with half some of the population's ability to travel across a state line.
Yeah.
I mean, that was, who would have thought that? I mean, 10 years ago, would you have even conceived of that there would be people in the legislature proposing that?
No,
You know, and we had some pretty crazy people in the legislature 10 years ago, but even so.
and it's reported Texas Health Facilities that we have about 40,000 children in Texas suffering malnutrition.
Right.
And one question: is there any way I can help still help if I move to Canada?
Well, before long, I mean, if they ban misoprostol, there may be people trying to fly to Canada. I mean, when I was a young woman, I had a kit. Okay, I never had to use it, fortunately, but this is before Roe v. Wade, and I had the British Caledonian flight schedule. I had my passport. I had $1,000 in travel checks, and I had $1,000 in cash, ready to fly to London. I also had a list of abortion providers in London.
Hmm.
So, I mean, people may be fleeing to Canada. Although these folks that have been the anti-abortion activists here, they're active in Canada too.
Mm.
All right,
Well, I'm
Poppy,
going
thank you.
by balloon when I go.
Okay, great to see y'all.
Thank you.
Stay
Thank you so
safe.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
This
you
was
very
really,
much.
really
Thank you, Poppy.
educational. beneficial. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Well, hold on.
Thank
We've
you.
got
Oh,
a
Thank you,
drawing.
Bob. Bob, do your thing.
Yes,
Oh,
we've got
yeah,
a
the
drawing,
book.
and whoever gets is lucky enough to have their name drawn, they will get a book. Hold on.
I might win.
It's written by Muhammad Mazrula. Julie, you have won tonight's drawing.
wow.
There you go.
Wow.
So tell Julie on chat that she won.
Okay, I will. So, and just for Poppy, what the prize is a $10 gift card from Brazos Bookstore. Yeah, it's an independent bookstore, and it's we really enjoy going to that bookstore because it's got really not just books but a lot of other stuff too. So, okay,
Right.
Julie, I will call them tomorrow and let them know that you're the winner, so you can go by there or call them, or you can order them online and have it shipped, whatever you want to do. So thank you so much for everybody attending our meeting. Our next meeting is on March 6th, Monday, same time. And we have a speaker who is an executive director of a local charity that helps refugees and asylum seekers through artwork. It's really unique, and when I learned about this, I thought, boy, this is really unique. And so I talked to her, invited her, so she's going to be our speaker for March 6th meeting. So put it on your calendar. You'll get a notice, but put it on your calendar. We always meet on the first Monday of the month at the same time, 6:15 p.m. Thank you all.
One quick announcement.
Yes.
One of our members, Louisa Hodges, who was our former treasurer, has a son-in-law whose family lives in Turkey, and is reported here just a few hours ago that they're all safe. They're up a little bit further north towards near Istanbul.
Wow.
If you have friends in that area, it's a really, really serious situation.
Thank you, Don. Yeah, yeah, it was good news that Luisa's son-in-law's family in Turkey is safe, but it's, 7.8 magnitude earthquake is a monster. It's a monster, and just look at the size, the number of casualties already reported. It's really shocking. All right, folks.
They
Yes.
had pictures of multi-story buildings just crumbling.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it's affected a very large area, and northern Syria particularly, where they're really in bad shape to begin with.
All right, guys.
Thanks again, you
All right.
guys.
Take care.
Great
Thank you.
program.
Good to
Yeah,
see you
thanks,
all.
everybody.
You all have a nice evening. Thank
Bye,
you.
Don.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.